So it's really been kind of a surreal experience to be here because there's been so many years and so much grinding and so many highs and lows and so many things to overcome. It's a much more emotional experience than I expected. And a lot of what we're talking about has just been really what's been going on since 2012. Bob talked a little bit about what happened between 2007 and 2012, which probably all that work allowed us to do what we've done starting in 12. So I'm just going to go through, talk about a few things that, got us going and why we're here, and probably a lot like why we're all here, right? I know this sounds crazy. I'm just trying to make sure that our great-grandchildren can eat fish sandwiches. It's just that simple. And in order to pull that off, you got to have data. And you can't change the future of the ocean on a fisherman's story. You need a peer-reviewed published paper, right? But let's face it, just because someone studies something doesn't mean they know how to catch it. It doesn't mean, especially when you're talking about the big things, you need salty people for that stuff, right? Full-time guys, that's all they do. Just like you need really great academics, full-time people, that's what they do, right? But if you can get people to come together on a common vision, great-grandchildren first, ocean first, with a selfless disposition, right? There's no more time for me. Your children have no more time for that. There's no more time for that. That is what has got us to a place where our biggest challenge is data deficit and time. Me. I would say, you are not serving your own future child or grandchildren if you roll across your journey with that sort of disposition. Because we simply don't have the time for people to be doing things one thing at a time. The old way, right? And that's what OCEARCH is all about. OCEARCH is about trying to come into a space and not be insane. Not continue to do the same thing and expect a different result. Right? And it was all about, is it possible to handle these big animals, right? Of course, it's not possible to handle these big animals if you're in an individual orientation. You think Brett and Brandon and Todd and TJ and Dave roll out on that ship working and thinking like individuals? Or do they feel like they're working as a team to create capacity and move it around the world and be the servant of scientists, fish for science, fish for their own great-grandchildren? That's how they think. So if you bring together an academic community, you can overcome the old way, right? I mean, at first it was about coming together as a team to catch an animal, and then I didn't even know how science worked. I had no idea in 2007. I'm like, man, we got to catch some big things for some smart people, because they say if we don't know, there's no fish sandwiches. So we better go do that. I want my great-grandkids to eat a fish sandwich. I love fish sandwiches. And I find out about this individual, kind of orientation, the system. It's not about the people, it's the system, right? They got to raise some money, then they do their field work, they do it in secret, right? Because no one can know, they got to get ahead of the other guy or gal. Publish a paper in 7 years, no one has any clue what they did, right? Because they're trying to get ahead, leverage the old way, right? Think about the difference in business models that's transitioned. The old way of business, right? You created a product, you created a competitive edge, and you tried to leverage that to get ahead of everyone else and win, right? That's like the old business model, like regular business. And then all of a sudden, these really smart people come along who are like, I'm going to create a product, and I'm going to give it away. And I'm going to create radical scale, and I'm going to monetize the value of my community instead of the product for the aggregate good. And suddenly you have Google, and you have Twitter, and you have Facebook. And you don't pay to use that stuff. They give the product away. Create a radical community. That community has value. Maybe we should disrupt this old way that's based on the old economy, where someone tries to do one thing by themselves and maybe 14 years later they can affect some policy because they're working by themselves. And we should try to build some big collaborative teams and think about attacking ocean research like Google and Twitter and Facebook. Let's get everyone together. Let's create radical capacity, a product, and let's give it away. And let's give away the data too. And let's create a massive community. And then let's monetize that community to pay for the capacity to serve the scientists. Let's get 12 people working together while we open source the data so people are learning about it and they're in it and they care. Let's get 15 published papers at the same period of time. One individual can do it. Can you imagine? I was watching these presentations today, and I'm watching somebody talk about the same damn shark over and over again about completely different things, right? Someone's talking about biotelemetry. Someone's talking about blood. Someone's talking about bacteria. Someone's talking about eyeballs. Can you imagine if each one of those individuals would have had to go out, build the capacity to catch one animal, do that one thing, and let it go? Now, if you say you love the ocean and you have any respect for these large sharks that you study, why in the world would you put that pressure on the resource? If you wanted to do 8 things, why would you be in a situation where you'd go out and catch 8 different animals and do one thing and then say you love sharks in the ocean? Why wouldn't you just catch one shark and do 8 things? Increase the rate of learning, right? Big collaborative teams. That's what OCEARCH is. And so then all of a sudden you can see, you can do 31 expeditions and you can get a lot of people in a data creation in a space that they've never had it before. And then you can attack a problem where you have a data set like this about white sharks in 2012, and then you can just jump forward, you catch 5 sharks. Oh, while we track these sharks, we're going to go help Chile, the Galapagos, Brazil, Australia, spend $2 million catching the first 5, come back and leverage that data and spend the next $2 million catching 27. Because you create data, you learn about the females, then you learn about the males, then they lead you to the birthing site, and suddenly you find the nursery, and you go in 2012 from very little data, loose data with PSATs, to, man, you're starting to get a pretty good picture at it. If we can't solve this puzzle and have this published in the next 3 years, we are not attacking this with a sense of urgency for our grandchildren, expecting to win with a sense of urgency and a sense of efficiency. We must win this one. We have no choice. We have no choice. And we have to attack it with that level of intensity. And then suddenly, 5 years later, you got this crazy data set that seemed almost impossible to achieve just 5 years ago when you started. And this doesn't include other data that was created. Why? It's a lot more efficient to create radical capacity and give it away to the entire science community than for each individual scientist to try to create their own capacity. And all have to make the same mistakes over and over again on their own journey of learning, which radically retards and slows the rate of learning, right? Just build capacity, get some people and go out and be a servant and bring the practical and the academic together, and suddenly amazing things happen. And then the courage by the people at OCEARCH, the science community, to allow us to open source the data and bring the world in. At first, I remember the reason that the tracker started in 12 was Huter said to me, He said, Chris, I know the science thing is important, and it's a matter of grinding it out. We're gonna solve this puzzle. But if we do that and we don't shift the tone of the conversation around the sharks, it may not matter, right? Because we might not have like the will of the people who actually get it, like no big sharks, no fish sandwiches. So we got to shift the tone of the conversation around sharks. So the idea was, okay, let's find all these modern vehicles to allow everyone in the world who wouldn't want to be on this ship right now catching big mature white sharks. So how do we create vehicles for people to be here, right? In the now. Everyone's in the now. Mobile first. And so the Global Shark Tracker, open sources, allows people in the project to see what's going on. And so first we really leverage that. So we're going to talk about how OCEARCH is evolving. Got the attention of the kids, right? Just a brief thing there. Like, this is about creating the next generation, a data-driven, solution-oriented resource managers, right? We also have no more time for the emotionally driven, fringy environmentalists, right? Position-oriented people. We need solution-oriented people who are ready to come together in the middle and create practical progress. If you're preventing practical progress, it doesn't matter if you're a preservationist or a poacher. You're both as bad as one another. Because what we can't have is paralysis. We need to make practical progress. It's almost always in the middle. If you feel like you're getting everything you want, you're probably not in the right spot, right? Everybody's got to be getting something they want and not getting something they want, and then you're probably pretty close to the middle, and that's probably practical and doable. So we want our future kids to be thinking about chasing the data, chasing the science, and being practical, solution-oriented individuals, not position-oriented individuals. So the tracker brings in the kid, and then you have this world of social media, right? So this world of social media initially began to try to shift the tone of the conversation around sharks. The kids are learning no big sharks, no fish sandwiches. Social media escape allows us to build a business model where we can integrate brands, give everything away, create scale, monetize that scale instead of the product. But it also allows us to shift the tone. I mean, come on, man. I'm seeing people. I saw some people a few days ago ask a 4,000-pound great white shark to be their Valentine. If that's not shifting the tone of the conversation, I don't know what is. I can honestly say to you, I think we've won that one. Certainly in the East Coast of the United States, we've won that one. But now as we evolve, right, and we mature, and I see what you guys are doing, we start to see this scale have, like 1 billion Twitter impressions a year, right? Over 5 billion earned media impressions a year through thousands of news stories. You remember when the only time there was a news story about a shark was when someone got eaten? So there's no story, someone got bit or eaten, right? Now there's thousands of stories about where's Mary Lee? Oh, what's Hilton doing? What's George could be doing? And then when there's the odd short story about an interaction, it's put in the proper context of thousands of stories about us being with these animals all the time, and occasionally they make a mistake, and suddenly there's context because we've created data, and we know now, and people are included at scale, right? So we use it to shift the tone of the conversation. I would say to you now that is shifting, right? We will continue to do that, but the whole beginning thing was global impact, right? And we felt like we needed blue chip substance. That's where you guys come in. That's where these papers come in, right? And radical scale. I would argue that we have the biggest voice in the ocean space in the world right now. We have well over 1 billion impressions a year, hard impressions of people engaging in ocean conversations with OCEARCH every single year, with the total potential reached by the end of the year of somewhere well over 10 billion impressions. So I say 1 billion, it's less than 10% of our total potential reach. And that's all about creating global impact. And now that the papers are starting to publish, we got some street cred on Capitol Hill, we start to get to work with great organizations like, well, everybody's from a great organization, right? But different people have different specialties. WCS, have a conversation with them, coming together with Moat and SeaWorld about, hey, we're thinking about coming out with some new shark legislation, and we would like to have OCEARCH be the voice in the front of this legislation because of the scale and size of your voice in your constituency base. Right? So as we mature and we continue to reach, right, we live in the biggest room in the world, which is the room for improvement. You're going to see OCEARCH evolve. You're going to see us evolve to try to help other scientists. Look, we have to a lot of other areas in ocean science are already really collaborative. The big shark space wasn't that way. Super disruptive when we said, oh, why don't we collaborate? And that's over now, right? We took a beating for that. And in some other ACEs, there's more collaboration. But we need to take the model that you all are working in, the efficiency in attacking the life history puzzle of a large shark like the white sharks in the Northwest Atlantic, and we need to make sure that that is applied across all ocean research so we can increase the rate of learning, right, with big collaborative open source teams, because we have no choice if we want to overcome this data deficit and time problem that we face. And so now as I get older, we have done the field work, so more and more papers are starting to pop. And then we can leverage not only the scale we've created to give the ship and be the servants of the science community, but we can leverage that same scale to start trying to drive data-driven, centrist, solution-oriented policy. And so you're going to watch OCEARCH continue to do what we've done, but start spending more time working on smart, science-based, centrist policy, a lot of which will come from some of the work you all do and collaborating with other groups who do other great work. Look, who would like to be proud of the planet we leave our kids? For the purpose of this conversation, there is no me and you, there is just us. And that means if you're individuals, that means if you're institutions, there is just us, right? So if we can continue to try to get people on that vibe, if we can try to share the model across broader areas of science to increase the rate of learning, that could be a far more valuable gift than just proving the model in the shark space. And so that's kind of what's going on moving forward with OCEARCH. It's about layers, right? It's about how efficient can you be? How much can you pull off with however much money you have? Right? If we go out there and we go on the ship and it costs $500,000 for a couple of weeks, it doesn't cost us any more money to have 18 scientists or 10. But it's more efficient. And if we're operating with sense of urgency and efficiency like a for-profit business, that's how you'd be attacking it, right? And so that's what OCEARCH is. It's about layering. It's about open sourcing. It's about Googleizing the approach. It's about selflessness and servant leadership. And I feel really grateful that all of you all have come together and collaborated. It's humbling to see the science coming together. It's humbling to see the work that you all are doing. But we can all continue to reach for more, because ultimately we just want to make sure that our kids eat fish sandwiches. And that is about data creation. And then having the scale to drive solution-oriented centrist policy. So super, thank you so much. I'm excited about tomorrow. I'm humbled, and I know all of us on behalf of Brandon and DJ and the guys, Captain Brett who's not here, and Dave and Louis, we are also grateful for the time you all have spent on the ship and the trust that you all have put in us and allowing us to serve you with your science by capturing these large animals for you. And we are and always will be eternally grateful for that trust. Thanks.